ultimately the best apps and the unicorns that were out there, what they ultimately did, if you want to actually categorize them all, the successful ones were the ones that like gave us.
Welcome to the Startup Fail Wisdom podcast, helping early stage founders without a business background avoid burnout and build their startups with confidence by learning from real failures. By the end of this episode, you'll learn how to avoid founder burnout before it cripples your startup, the most common financial mistakes early stage founders make and how to avoid them, and key strategies to build a support system that will help you grow faster. Today on the Fail Wisdom podcast, I'm very pleased to have my guest is Leo Plaza. Leo works here at Fishburners, but has had quite a lot of experience in the startup space and the business space as well. And I always say that a big advantage to become a startup founder is actually if you have a business background. So we'll get into that, Leo. So welcome to the podcast. And can you tell us a little bit about your background? And
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. Sure. My background, I was born in Ecuador, South America. Not many people know what that is, but
I do.
Yeah.
My wife's from Argentina, so.
Oh yeah, that's north of Argentina, and so I'm a small country, third world country. So you it's a bit rough. So you learn to be street smart. And then I moved to Australia in 2009 because my brother was here at the time, and he said, "Oh, Leo, you can surf because it's the Gold Coast. You can finish work, go surfing." And I was like, "Oh, that's sick. That's like incredible." So I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it was all surfing for me back then. I was 18, so I made the move, and then I got to Gold Coast, and it was winter, and I was like, "Oh, I don't want this. I don't like it." In July. For me, that was freezing because Ecuador is really moist and warm. But actually, life hit me like as a train because it turns out my brother was actually both of them, they were here, but they were both severely using drugs, which is unfortunate. But what's crazy about it is that having both of them at the same time on that, and me, the youngest. It's
really hard.
Yeah. So, and I was like, what do I do? So actually, I was in Southport. I don't know if for those familiar with Gold Coast, but Southport, there's a TAFE in the middle, and then there's like this little place there, and open to the public. And then I remember like my brother attacking me, like thinking that I was carrying drugs. So it was a bit weird. Anyway, someone came to the rescue because my brother is like almost twice the size of me. So someone came to the rescue, and then it was like kind of like, okay, well, this is life, in a new country. I didn't know really anyone, and then
that is tough.
Yeah, I think we all got stories, but I think what this taught me is like, okay, I'm on my own sort of thing from early on, because like my brothers who were supposed to like be guiding me through, a new country on the other side of the world. Well, I actually had to like kind of escape from them, really literally run away from them. So, so I was like, okay, I'm on my own. I'm 18, I'm on my own, and then that's like what built a lot of resilience, because I think that's what you need in startup.
Absolutely. Just about every founder I've talked to, they've said the main thing is that resilience. Yeah. Wow. So you came here, and did you know English at the time when you were 18?
I actually, it's funny because like, yes, at school they teach you like for 12 years, like, but no, I couldn't. I could barely speak a few words. So that was interesting, because the thing is like a lot of people who migrate to Australia from South America, they stick around people from South America. So you don't get to practice English because you're with your South American friends talking Portuguese or Spanish. So what helped me is like I left Gold Coast and I went to Sunshine Coast, and I didn't know anyone there at all. And that's when I started to learn, because like you need to be out there exposed to like grow. And
it's absolutely true. I mean, you need to be away from those communities, because like even in my family, like my mother-in-law, speaks very little English, and she's been here for like 40 years because she's always in the Spanish community.
Exactly.
she can communicate, but at a low level. So whereas my wife, she came over here when she was 19, and same thing, she had done a little bit of English at school, but then she did some intensive English courses, and now she's an English and Spanish teacher in high school.
Wow.
So there you go.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. It goes to show, like, I mean, it's like, the more you practice something. Yeah. Yeah. But if you learn something that you don't put it to practice. Yeah. It's not very good.
And let's go back to, before you even came to Australia. So you grew up in Ecuador, was tough. So tell us about, like, what was it like living there, and what was your life like and your family?
Yeah, sure. It's very different. And I forget when I go back there, I'm like, people tell me, like, because very different in the way that, like, well, you don't walk around with your phone on your hand, like,
right.
Yeah. So every single person I know, like family member, like every single person I know has had a encounter with, like, people who are criminals and they, like, take your stuff. Like, even myself outside the church, I was at gunpoint, like someone was pointing a gun at me and saying, give me everything. And that's normal. So coming here to Australia is like, but the sad thing is, like, I forget even sometimes, and I find myself, like, maybe sometimes complaining a little bit about, like, something here, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this is the best country in the world by far. It's almost like we are spoiled here.
I agree.
That we look for silly things to complain.
Yeah. First world problems.
Yeah, first world problems. Yeah, it's like, Wi-Fi. It's like, So.
It's interesting because I remember my father-in-law went to Argentina years ago, and like, he'd been there for, I think they were 60 when they came over to Australia, and he went back after 10 years. And someone picked up. He said, "Oh, where are you from?" He said, "Oh, here, obviously." He said, "No, you're not. Look, those shoes are different."
Oh, really?
Stuff like that, or their accent might become just a tiny bit different, and people can pick up on it really quickly. And there is more crime now, sadly. I mean, I've been going to Argentina since 1977, 82, 87, 2009. I've done many trips there, and there's big change since those times. Actually, the first time I went was when the military junta was in power. But I was 18 years old, and I didn't sort of realize what's going on. My friend and I hitchhiked around the country.
Oh, wow.
And I think now, like, crazy.
Yeah, it's great. It's sad that, like, it's getting worse, because I remember, like, kind of like I was like 10 years old after school, and I would actually go and, like, walk around the shopping centers and that. Like, I don't think these days you should, but most people actually avoid leaving the house. My family, like, they're always like, we choose carefully when to leave the house. So
it's sad, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's sad. Yeah. So, well, hopefully things can change into the future.
Yeah.
We'll see. So, okay, so you come to the Gold Coast, and unfortunately your brothers, I would classify they have an illness. Like, I think addiction is an illness. And I did interview a lovely lady, Pia Clinton Tarristed, who's got like an addiction clinic, you could say, online, so sort of hybrid online and not, because I have a member of my family also has been through the whole addiction journey. And when somebody really wants to stop, they need to get help immediately. And there's never a place in detox or in rehabs, or there's the private ones, and they have to pay a lot, and they're there for 30 days and nothing really happens. So that's one of my episodes. Anyway, just can't remember the name. Clean Slate Clinic. Okay. So anyone that wants...
So is that in Australia?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's $320 a month, and you can go through the whole program for a year and have support after, and it's a wonderful initiative. But anyway, moving on from that, so you're in the Gold Coast, you realise, you got to do your own thing, and so tell us your journey from there. What happens from there?
Yeah, so then I guess I picked up a job like you do, any job that you can get hold of, and I did get fired actually because kitchen hand. It was I was probably not the best at like washing dishes, and so that didn't work out. And then I got another job in a hotel. See, this is the thing, is like I'll call it a problem that I have turned into a weapon in a good way, I hope, because it's like I can't help myself to do things different. And that has got me into a lot of trouble. Like I said, I got fired actually from my first 2 jobs because I just refused to kind of follow the instructions step by step. But it has got me also some good results.
Whereas probably if they'd listened to you, maybe they could have made some really good changes.
Yeah, and that's actually did happen in that third job that actually I was I managed to stick through, and it was more about like just for efficiency. Like for example, we were cleaning these pools in a resort where there was sand, and then they would use this pump to pump up the sand. But guess what? Like then it would like go into a bucket, and the bucket would overfill, and the sand would go back to the pool. And I was just like, and I remember the first day saying to the guy that was training me, like going like, no, I can't do it like that. And then it's like, and he was like, you can't tell me, like the supervisor was saying, like you're not the one that calls the shots, like you do what you know. This is how we've been doing it here, and that's a famous quote that people say. This is how we do it. So
I hate that. I hate that. I worked in a government organisation for years, and I've always done it like this, and you know, it's really annoying for an entrepreneurial type person.
Yeah, it's you're right. Like it's how our brains are wired, and like so I started to like try and find my ways around what where I was most needed. And so, yeah, in a way, like it really helped that resort in particular. Like, we save a lot of money in labor as I was like now in charge of like some of the departments, like cleaning and then front office. And so there were some changes that were made, like that were making it more efficient. So that kind of helped me go up in the ladder, quite quickly. But then I got bored, as you do as an entrepreneur,
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
And
Yep.
Yeah, and then like many of us who are here, like some of us come from the industry or like corporate, and we just go bored and we're like, nah, we want to go and take more risk.
Yes, so. Yeah. We are a different breed, I always say.
Yeah.
And so, do you think that's something innate in you, that sort of risk-taking entrepreneurial thing, or is it something that's happened in your life, in your formative years, at some time that's formed you into that?
Yeah. No, look, I have a strong view on this actually, and we could probably debate this a little bit. But okay, so Einstein, Isaac Newton, Elon Musk, and a few of those, let's call them intelligent people. They have a deterministic view on the world. So like everything is like there's a destiny, and everything's kind of like laid in front of us, and we have basically no free will. Okay, that's not a popular concept because we like to feel like we have control, right? We like to think that we are in control of our lives, but what I'm getting at is I'm exploring this mindset for the last couple months where I actually don't have any free will, and it's a bit of like controversial because you would think, okay, well, hang on. So if there's no free will, well, am I then probably gonna stay in bed and do nothing because life's it's all in front of us, like being. We're just playing something pre-recorded. But what's actually done to me is actually the opposite. It's actually I'm going, okay, well, no, look, this is what wants to happen. I'm just going to remove myself and let that happen. And that's actually helped me a lot in my startup journey. Okay. Because I'm realizing I'm just seeing things for what they are. And I'm like, look, that's what wants to naturally happen. So let me get myself out of my own way.
That's interesting.
Yeah. However, on the other side, you have who is the one that thinks that like, yes, we have 100% free will. That's a typical 17-year-old teenage kid that like they think that like they're on top. They call the shots. They can do whatever. They can manipulate anyone.
Yeah, but mom, have you done my washing?
Yeah, exactly. So when you look at that, okay. So most teenage kids they haven't gone through much in life. No. They think that there's 100% free will. On the other side, we have these scientists that like most of them agree that there's no free will. Now it's a bit of like a philosophy here, but like at the same time, there's a branch in science that does throw in the argument that there maybe is some free will, and that's quantum mechanics and quantum physics, because the atoms have the superposition. So that's the only branch of science that like leads to think that maybe there is some probability in life that you have a choice A or B. But anyways, it's worked out well for me because it's almost like by removing myself from the mind, like you really let your intuition, push through. And this leads me to something that I wanted to share today, which is about like, I think at one point I'm going to write possibly a book on this. It's called The Startup Trap.
Okay. I like that.
Because I see that a lot. It's like the startup trap is when you're a startup, you start day one with this vision, this dream of like changing the world for the better. But then most founders, and including me, like we very soon fall into the trap, which is that like, hey, you first need to raise money. Okay, first thing. It's like most actually kids from UTS, you know what? And it's sad to see that like the first thing that they think that they have to do is like go raise money. I'm like, dude, like you haven't got like a single sales, like you haven't got traction, you haven't got any validation for the market.
Yeah.
From the market.
Validation is so important. Yeah.
So, and I started to, because now with YEH, Young Entrepreneurs Hub, which is one of the main things I do.
Yeah.
I obviously I am mentoring a lot of like early stage startups, and I'm seeing that so much, and I'm like, what's going on? Why every single founder thinks that like the first job is to raise money? I wanted to actually ask you, why do you think that is?
Oh, it's just what they hear, It's what they hear out there, and they think that that's just what they need to do, I guess.
Yeah. And then you fall in the trap, because then you like putting, basically you want to get from A to B, but then you've been given this prescription or like a recipe, and then that becomes your goal and not what you wanted to do in the first place. So I hear, and I went through this is exactly why I know so much. It's like, you go and then someone else will come and tell you, hey, there's this grant, you should go for it. And then you spend like about a month on that grant. Don't get me wrong, these whole things work.
Oh, I can really relate to that.
Yeah.
I came here to this building when I first started, like a year later, government grant, 100K, 500 people applied, 18 got in to pitch. I pitched, I came third, they gave it to the first two. Yeah. And so much time.
Yeah, exactly. So look, as founders here, we love grants. So please, if there's any more grants out there, like we'll take them. No, I actually hate them, because you lose your point. I mean, what you should be doing with all of that time is going to talk to your market again and put something in front of them as soon as possible. Like I'm talking like now I'm learning that that should be within like a month or two. Put something in front of them, get their feedback.
Get something minimal, right?
Yeah, something minimal.
Minimal via product is really minimal, or even like, I know it's hard, but if you can actually sell even the idea.
Exactly. Like
Dropbox.
Dropbox.
Even better.
So how did Dropbox became so successful? Like, this one it ties to what I think it comes down to. It's like never build before you sell. Sell before you build. And you're right. Like you said, you can make a video. You can maybe run the app on a spreadsheet. Like just help someone yourself. You can be the app yourself and help one person and get their feedback. That's the first connection you gotta make. It's like that. Market value is your product, whatever solution is, connected to the market, and that feedback loop. If you don't have that feedback loop running, what's the point in grants? What's the point in fundraising?
Exactly. And you got to validate it as well. And you got to be open to maybe this amazing idea that's going to change the world, your mind, people actually don't want, So you got to be open to that. Like I always talk about, one lady I interviewed said, I have an MLP, minimal lovable product. I said, no, don't fall in love with your product, No, and she has spent a lot of money on her platform already.
It's like when exactly that, like they haven't changed or help anyone, and they building an app. And I'm telling you, I did that last year. So, spending all this time building the app, and I fell in the trap. Another trap is like the tax R&D tax incentive. It's again, maybe I'm biased. I'm super biased, actually. I hate it because it's a cost maximizing activity. So you're maximizing. It doesn't incentivize efficiencies, because the more you can spend, the more you can get that refund. And again, you lose the point. So I think that like for those who are, unless you're in deep tech, I think deep tech, you need to work on your tech first. And some areas this is not applicable for. But for most of us startup founders, we can be the app to help one person, and if they're willing to pay, if they're not willing to pay us say $5, like surveys don't work, because talk is cheap. You need to get someone to pay you, even if it's $5, for you to be helping them solve a problem, and start there. Once you get in traction, and then the apps and UI, UX, Figma, there's a point in place where yes, that works, but like getting caught up in that, like, and spending 6 months and without having,
How about 4 years and 700,000 in our case?
Yeah. Okay. So that makes me, because I did waste a whole full year and a ton of money. So yeah, I guess we can relate on that. So I'm glad that I'm not the only one.
There's so many, believe me, a lot of people I've talked to, and even one of the founders that used to sit next to me at Macquarie Uni, the incubator there, and they built an app, and they were in the aged care space, and it was going to be amazing. And in the end, they realised it didn't get any traction at all, and they went back to more like, looking at like talking to seniors personally and doing training and all that sort of thing. So, every startup doesn't have to be, that unicorn status either as well. And that's
exactly.
And that's and so I mean, okay, so first thing you got to do is validate your idea, right? So what's the next step?
Yeah, so once you start to like validate and then reiteration, right? Like Sam Altman from OpenAI, I like one video where he said like that the whole idea, you should aim to build an organization that is taking in feedback on a weekly basis and basically putting out a better version within weeks. Yeah. And that cycle, that's your organization. Your organization should be aimed towards that. At taking feedback from the market and then launching a new version or like a new feature, updated within weeks. Yeah. So that's the purpose of hiring people, almost like to build that like momentum.
And it's interesting because I interviewed Rabel. He was one of the founders of Twitter, even before Jack Dorsey. And he said, people used to say to us, "Oh, I could build Twitter in a day." And he said, "We did 6 hours in a hackathon."
Wow.
And then they just kept updating it and changing and, with all the feedback constantly. So that's
and it's important who you get that feedback from, which is people that pay you. So like, whereas if we get caught up in that, going back to the startup trap, it's like, then someone else will come and say like, hey, you need like, a lawyer, and then you need like, this grant, and then you need like, and then all of this in front of you. And that, like, don't get me wrong, this is all needed and essential. But that comes after. Like, that's the second, third step, which is like to get your compliance in order. And I was actually talking to Martin, from CEO of like Fish Burners, and he actually highlighted something that was like, whoa, it's happening. Where a lot of more startup founders, like they have smaller teams, and I think everyone knows this now. Like with AI, like there's smaller teams, and so I guess it's just like I'm just telling people, hey, be a bit careful, like follow your intuition and don't get fall in the trap.
I think intuition is key, and most startup founders I've talked to that have been successful, they've followed their intuition first. Yeah. First and foremost, you have to. Some say the gut, I say intuition, and it sort of goes back to that philosophy of yours as well. Instead of like thinking, okay, this is what I have to do, and like someone said that or a mentor's told you whatever. No, go with your own intuition and follow that. So that is sort of a more relaxed and better way to do it. But a lot, like even myself, like when I started, I had no business background, had no clue what I'm doing. And so one mentor would say this, one would say that, and in the end, you're like, your head's exploding.
Exactly. And
mental whiplash, they call it.
Totally, especially with our phones these days. Like we live in an attention economy, so it's almost like it's like you say, it's so overwhelming. So it's almost like you need to really like take the advice, but like ultimately, follow your intuition, because like see these days. Because in Australia, what's happened, unfortunately, the story of Canva, like they went to list in NASDAQ and they didn't list ASX in ASX. That's a big loss for us as Australia community, because like we would have loved for them to list it here and then build on that momentum, like Zero, so I feel like what the problem could possibly be is that like, because the startups, they're going somewhere else to list. And so the way that the industry is around the startups is making money is not from exits and success so much. That US is getting that success because then you have your IPO, and if you compare the amount of IPOs to Australia, it's no comparison. So unfortunately, the industry has relied on making money through services and sucking on to the startups through that startup trap. So it's like the industry. So what I'm getting at is like I know that the industry around startups is all with good intentions, but I think we need to sometimes give a step back and just simply go, okay, well, look, I could just keep on following all of this advice and then get nowhere, or I can like sometimes give a step back and then follow our intuition, and then anyways, that's what I've been preaching a lot.
It's really good advice. And as you know, like I'm interested in forming some like founders groups, and because I found that talking to other founders, because they got skin in the game. They can relate to each other. They're on the same journey. They've been through it. I found that's really invaluable, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
100%, and especially like in the way of like leveling up. If you can get around founders who, again, have got a bit of traction, and really, you'll see that like what they've done is, well, they have a close relationship with the market. They're not like applying for grants the whole time, you know. So that's, going back to, I don't want to keep going back to that, but I think like that, you know, the best investor in your business is going to be your customers. Like the best source of funding is going to be your customers, because it's not like that money, it's like smart money. It's telling you, hey, and it's giving you that feedback where you can reiterate. So 100%, I think getting amongst other founders, it also helps when you're down and like you're like, oh, today I'm just not feeling it.
It happens every now and then, no?
Yeah.
Like every second day.
Actually, you know, funny that like yesterday I saw, and it made me feel so good. Like I seen this guy makes a podcast. I forgot his name, and he said like, sometimes I just some days I'm just like really like just down and like feel like shit.
Yeah.
And then Elon Musk says to him same, and I'm like, oh shit, Elon Musk saying that he has bad days with all of his success.
Yeah.
So surely we can have one bad day, you know, a month, like a really terrible day. That's okay.
Yeah. From my experience, it's more like every second day, you know, it's ups and down. Well, you're high and you're low, and yeah. Okay, right. And so, look, some people go with bootstrapping if they can.
Yeah.
Others, you know, let's say they've done their validation, they've done everything, and then, okay, so the next step is that then in investment, or what would you say? What do you advise the young founders?
Yeah, I would say like the second step. I mean, after you've put something on the market, the second step is really building a team around like that reiteration. Yeah. So what we are seeing with NVIDIA and OpenAI and all of these things are like the whole industry is moving to like releasing new versions of the product or a new product a lot faster. It used to be like 2 years, 3 year cycles. Yeah. Now it's like 6 months. Like so I think that's step 2 is like actually continue to build on that. Like, you know, then these other problems like, you know, grants and taxes and like lawyers should come like as a consequence of your the problem of like having this money flowing, and then you need like sort of like assistance there. But I don't believe either in like, I don't have a rule book, and I couldn't give you step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. But I think that like from what I'm learning and seeing is like that is the most important thing. And then with investors, at the end of the day, you'll never. So the problem with going for like find an investor and pitching so much is that a lot of people think that like they're gonna get an investor like from someone that they've never met. Like they go pitching into an event and there's someone sitting there and a stranger, and they feel like they're gonna get an investor, and that's not how it works. No. So the way I've seen it work, and put it this way, I've never heard of someone like getting an investment from someone that they've just met. So it all comes down to anything in sales, anything like as humans. So it's a relationship. So before an investor invests in your business, like you're gonna have 7 coffees with them. Yeah. You know. Yeah. So
not all at the same time.
Not all at the same time. Yeah, that would be terrible. But it takes building relationships. So I feel like the journey of like fundraising is not something that you do. It's not just single focus. You need to understand that like, I mean, some have got like luckier than that, but like I think it's something that you build relationships over time, and it might take 3-6 months to get something through.
I remember one of my mentors, you know, like 5 years ago, he said, look, Paul, if you're going to start looking at investment, think it's a full-time job for a year.
Exactly.
And I thought, I don't want to do that.
Exactly.
So we were bootstrapping, and I thought, well, and then a lot of investors won't invest in you unless you have an income. So I thought, let's try and get sales. Yeah. You know? Didn't work out, but COVID and a whole lot of things. But that was sort of a dilemma. Like for me, going and pitching to investors for a year was like, I thought, you know.
And then when you ask, like, and I'm guilty again of all this. This is the only way I've learned this. It's like when you ask a founder, okay, what exactly are you gonna do with the money? They don't know. So one thing I've learned when I was in Silicon Valley last time I was there is like when I had a chance to talk to like what I consider to be like really high up in, I mean, success wise, track record people. Yeah. You know what they really think right away when I ask them, I tell them about my problem. they're not thinking race, they're thinking partnerships. That's shifted my mind into, like, it's all really about partnerships. Like, I'll give you an example. Recently, I was talking to someone who has a great idea. Like, the idea is not really, the idea, it's always great, okay? The idea is always great. But I'm always thinking of, okay, so how are you going to go to market? You know, what's your go-to-market strategy? And most of us will make the mistake of thinking, like, we're going to start that from scratch. Right? Like, and the whole, like, getting in front of customers and the customer acquisition to be done from ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's a big mistake.
I was trying that. Yeah.
And
so you're not a salesperson. Like, a lot of us are not.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
We have, that's actually funny because, like, it's so true. Like, we have that intensity that, like, it doesn't allow for a good salesman, because when you're a good salesman, you listen 90% of the time.
Exactly.
But we talk too much, like as I do. But on that point, I think that it's very important to just find a partnership, and that could be worth more than, like, say, like $100K investment from someone that then you're gonna pour into marketing. Whereas you could partner up with someone who's already talking to your ideal customer, right? But again, it's ironic I'm giving advice. Maybe follow your intuition.
Like, in some cases, everyone's different. But so did that happen in your case? So let's talk a bit about your startup.
Sure.
So it's Help AI, right? But you also had a business in the Gold Coast that you talk about that went to, like, 1.2 million, which you say is a real cap for businesses. Yeah. Because after that, you need to get more people into the business, and then that's a big blockage. Yeah. And that can be the same for startups, right?
Exactly.
So tell us a bit about that.
Sure. Okay. So then on to my startups. And by the way, I wish I follow my own advice a lot more. It's easy to say these things, but, like, So, but, like, look, my first business, it was, like, actually like a traditional business, commercial cleaning. And yes, that's the ceiling that maybe with inflation is now 1.5 million, but it's basically very typical, because statistically is where you need to hire and get middle management. You know, you can't be either you doing everything with clients or workers or, like, your staff. You need middle management, and that's when leadership really it comes to, you know, out of the closet, and it's almost like, okay, are you a leader?
Yeah.
And then you realize that, like, you know, it will never work if I didn't actually apply my values and hire like-minded people, because when you have someone else manage people for you, if there's no alignment in values, like, it's just not going to work.
No.
So then you almost have to go back to scratch, and values come into play. Now, my startup was about actually solving that, right? So then it's called Spruces. And then I'll get to Help AI.
Yeah.
So Spruces is trying to eliminate that barrier, because we are basically decentralized. Okay, so it's like the Uber of commercial cleaning.
Okay.
And using AI to, like, basically streamline the process. Yeah. And so we know, like, basically that way we can actually go a bit more scalable. But then I came across another problem, which is, okay, so if I have, in the case of cleaning, commercial cleaners all over the place, how do I ensure that the quality is there, the safety is there? You know, like, I have, say, 40 cleaners all over the place in Sydney and in Gold Coast or whatever it is. It's like, man, it's nerve-wracking. Like, you lose sleep on, like, oh, is that cleaner doing well? Is that place being looked after? Yeah. So then I realized, okay, and obviously with all of the AI movement and what we see and the technology out there, I saw the potential of using body cameras.
Interesting. Like the police.
Yeah, exactly, the police. Mm-hmm. However, the big difference is, like, we are not on the employer side, we're on the worker side. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the only way that, like, it could work, because if you tell me, Leo, I'm going to put a body camera on you to see what you're doing, I don't want to, you know, I wouldn't put it on.
I can't go now and clean the house and have a 2-hour sleep.
Exactly.
Damn.
So, yeah, pretty much. So the product is really about, like, it's on the worker side. Yeah. Meaning, like, that, you know, we're not gonna get you're not gonna get in trouble for things that you were not getting in trouble before. Mm-hmm. It's not about that. It's about safety. Yeah. You know, keeping you safe. You know, there's an SOS function where like, the cleaners would just basically have a command, like voice activated, and then then they're onto someone.
Yeah, because they're
You know,
going into
hands-free.
properties all the time,
Yeah.
and they, anybody could be there, or someone could break in, I guess. So that's a good feature.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
safety
Yeah.
from the worker side of things, quality in the way of like basically say that you've never done something before, rather than you having to stop and wait for someone else to come to the rescue. Well, we're there with you, so we will actually tell you how to use your hands.
Of course. So
Right.
so yeah, you're viewing what they're doing.
My biggest frustration when I was a worker is like I get 1 or 2 hours of training, and then off you go.
It's a very Aussie thing,
Yeah.
Like there's an expression: throw them in the deep end,
Exactly.
and they'll learn. Like I've had that many times starting jobs, and it is pretty brutal.
It
you
is,
know?
and I think it's because of the cost, labor cost. It's huge in the first world countries.
Yeah.
So, whereas what we're doing here is like having on-demand training. So, one of the things that like blew my mind when I saw is like seeing a cleaner. He was cleaning walls, right? We were doing like a demo in a hotel.
Yeah.
So he was cleaning walls, and then I saw and overheard like from the distance like Helpy telling him, "Hey, do it this way instead." And I was like, "Oh my god!" He just updated his technique as he's doing it. Like that was pretty profound.
That type of training is really effective, I find.
Yeah.
And for people like you or me that, like I don't know, haven't got a lot of patience, I guess, sometimes to like do a big course and then, not that I haven't done that, but yeah, it saves so much time and people get the training right when they're doing it. So they learn it a lot more efficiently.
Exactly, and it's more practical because if you start with the theory, it's just like going back to language. We were talking about like if you learn Italian for 10 years or English in my case for 12 years, but I don't practice, like it's all gone.
Exactly.
So it doesn't help. So by giving practical training, not only a company can basically training used to be an overhead, now it actually goes into production. And right now I'm getting, it's actually interesting, I'm getting demo requests from all sorts of industries. And one interesting thing I find is like a lot of people say to me, well, Leo, what's the difference between me giving my supervisors like and then doing video calls? And I'm like, well, to be honest, like our technology, we're not building hardware. I'm not gonna build hardware. Yeah. And we're not gonna ever have a better AI than what's out there by OpenAI and Gemini and all of that stuff. That's not my competition. Yeah. Where my product's really about like helping organizations embrace this new technology, this new capability. And so our focus is mostly around that. Is basically education of the staff so that they can see the benefit, for them to see that it's actually helping them. And it's not like about like putting them in like a 24/7 surveillance.
And another video I saw of you were talking about how with AI, don't look to put on more and new features because it's always upgraded all the time, but look for unique problems. So is that how you came up with this? Yeah,
I think are you talking about like the risk of maybe building something that then AI is going to be able to do?
Yeah. For example, you said building in certain types of prompts, and then DALL-E came out, and then you could just do it with prompts, instead of the development. Like I'm not big knowledge behind that, but
sure. Okay, I mean you mean prompt engineering, which is like
a
lot of people actually started studying that, and I'm like, well, if you really look at like how the LLMs are getting built, and for the purpose of that. All big tech is working towards like making it so like a 5-year-old can talk to the AI. Yeah. They want to put this, obviously, they want literally 5-year-olds to be able to talk to an AI. So I don't know if prompt engineering is what we should learn, because like each time that a new version of GPT or like a model comes out, they're more natural language, and that's where it's going to get to. So it's interesting. I mean, if we follow that rabbit hole for a second, I think we are, from what I see, it's like, in the next decade, I think we're going to actually start leaving our devices aside. And so getting caught up in building apps that like requires you to be on a device, on a computer, I feel like it's risky.
I agree. Yeah. And I'd love not to be on so many apps on the computer all the time. I think a lot of people. Yeah. So if we can free us up from that, I think that'll be a great thing.
And ultimately, the best apps and the unicorns that were out there, what they ultimately did, if you want to actually categorize them all, the successful ones were the ones that like gave us most time back.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you think of like, okay, how are humans going to get the time back is by not being on our phones 8 hours a day. So that would be great if we don't have to be there on our phones so long. Yeah.
It's funny, like if sometimes I'll get on the train, on the metro train, you can see all the way down, right? And every single person, including me, is on their phone.
It's going to be a massive unlock, and I'm really positive about the future. A lot of people say like, oh, you know, this and that about like the future, but I'm like, it's going to be great because we're going to get, in my view, we're going to finally stay away from our devices and be able to have another 8 hours a day, hopefully.
Yeah. To be more creative, I guess. And well, let's hope it works out like that. Sometimes the politics of things don't work out like that, you know,
that is true.
Or greed of corporations, etc. And so, Help AI, that's another startup?
Yeah, so Help AI, because it's a product, it's not a service, so we have to separate them. So that's incorporated in San Francisco. Well, actually Delaware, but yeah, it's a US-based company, and so, and it's actually, I guess, it's a beautiful case study for YEH, because like everything that I tell people like that YEH can do for you, like the Young Entrepreneurs Hub, which is essentially is connecting Silicon Valley to Sydney and Sydney to Silicon Valley,
which is really important.
For if you are serious about a startup, I think you need to look at every opportunity you can.
Yeah. Just on that point,
sure.
The same founder of Twitter, he said, look, it's all about connections, about your network and where you're located, because he was giving a talk in Europe and they're saying, oh, how can we, set up a Silicon Valley here? And I said, well, it's a certain type of people and it's a culture and, so I think Silicon Valley is the world hub of startups.
Like it or not, it's where 95+% of the inference on AI is coming from. Yeah. So if it was like the hot thing, now it's getting more attention. So so going back to, I'm the perfect case study. So I have a co-founder there, thanks to YEH. I learned that like actually incorporating in there takes like 2 hours. It's super easy. So I'm helping actually people now, like you say, they want to like tap into either the US market or want a co-founder.
Okay.
I found that actually, believe it or not, getting an MVP out is actually cheaper there if you do it with the right connections, as you mentioned, than like doing it here through the ATO tax incentive. Believe it or not, I had an agency wanting to charge me like $2 million to do an MVP. And they would have taken 2 years, because what some of us maybe don't know at the start with the R&D tax incentive is that like it shouldn't work. It's like there's like a thing that like says in there like if you almost have to build something that doesn't work for it to fall in the category. And it's like, okay, so then you have to build something that you may be able to use it, and it's very confusing. And it's not efficiency. So like, yes.
So if you have a co-founder in the US and Silicon Valley, I know that if Australian founders want to try and get funding from the US, it's much harder because you're in Australia or Australia.
Exactly. So you need a co-founder there.
Yeah,
you need to have roots there.
I think that's brilliant.
When I was networking there, which by the way, there's like 3 networking events on a Sunday. It's full on. After 2 weeks, I didn't want to talk to anyone, to be honest. So like founders, the first thing they ask me is like, okay, so are you incorporating Delaware?
Incorporating what?
Delaware. So it's one of the states, because it's like
Delaware.
Delaware.
Yeah.
Because it's one of basically the tax incentives are there. So like it's like the offset tax a lot easier.
Yeah. Because over there, every state has different laws and legal stuff. It's really complicated.
Yeah. So and look, it's super easy actually to do it. But like that's actually the first question someone will ask you if you.
Interesting.
At least in my journey, they were asking me like, okay, are you based here?
Yeah.
Are you incorporated here? It's going to be a lot harder if you actually live here, you don't have a co-founder there, and if you're incorporated in Australia, I'm not saying it's impossible, but your chances are less. Are you
incorporated over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so Delaware.
And so with the Young Entrepreneurs Club, so you're going to be doing a tour over there coming up?
Yeah, so we do actually, and that's like, I wanted to share this. Like, so we're going to go there as a group in the end of September, because we go to the Startup World Cup. And that's the idea. So we're going to do a yearly trip there as a
Startup World Cup.
Yeah,
so
Startup World Cup.
Okay, so tell us, what is that like exactly?
Okay, so just
like not kicking a ball, right?
No, similar, but because it's like the whole world competes on pitching competitions, kind of like Shark Tank, because it's a good show. You know, it's good
I
for
don't.
show.
I don't like it. I think they're.
Yeah.
Anyway, another story.
Do you mean like you don't like the pitching? The
I don't like some of the judges, the way
Yeah.
they treat the startups. I think you have to have a lot of.
It is for
respect.
show. Let's be honest. Like it's 90% for show.
It is, and I talked to somebody that's been there and seen the show, and they said, they're there for 4 hours and they just take 10 minutes out of that.
Yeah,
It's not.
But even like the whole pitching.
Yeah.
It sells. It's a sexy thing to sell events, and it's like, but it's mostly for show.
Yeah.
In anywhere in the world, it gets done mostly for show. So it's actually, last year I spent 6 months pitching in this road show. They call it a road show. They took me to all these cities in Queensland just to pitch to farmers, and I was like, "What am I doing?" Yeah.
Wow.
So I fell in the trap, as I said. I fell in the trap of just putting on a show for people. But anyways, so we're doing a trip there, and so end of September, and then I'm working. Fish Burners are helping me out with this, but basically bring some of the delegation from Silicon Valley to come for the event that we have here in October. I always stuff up the name. I think it's Southwest South Sydney or South Sydney Essex.
Oh yeah,
SW.
Something Southwest. Yeah.
Southwest something.
Yeah. I think it was on last year. It's the first time it came to Australia. No, it was a big event.
Yeah.
It
used to be
South by Southwest. I think it is.
They told me, like, I was talking to actually someone from there yesterday, and first time in Australia, and it was so successful they're gonna do it again this year.
South by Southwest.
South by Southwest. There you go. So that's the right name. So that's what like YEH is about. So basically, look, it's like we have like a 3-step sort of formula. Like, the first step, if you want to say either tap into the US market or do tech there.
Yeah.
First incorporate. Number 2, then you need to decide whether if you need a technical co-founder, like a CTO, and we help you get that through YEH, so Young Entrepreneurs Hub.
Okay.
Or maybe you are technical, but then you need like a go-to-market person.
Yeah. So when you say young people, is it young people like me or a bit younger than me?
Look, I'm not that young anymore. It's just more. I guess it's more of an attitude. But like we have all ages.
Yeah.
It is a bit of like I feel like I like it and I hate it, but I like it because of the fact that it does definitely like bring people of all ages, but with that energy, a type of attitude.
So under 65?
Look, any ages. We have like we have all ages.
Right.
It's more about like that, like energy, the vibes.
Yeah.
Like
a lot of entrepreneurs are young at heart, so to speak.
So that's where the work comes from.
You got to be,
Yeah.
to be in this space.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. And if somebody wants to join that or find out more about that, how do they do that?
These days I live 7 days at Fish Burner, so come see me.
7 days?
Right. Literally,
Okay.
You gotta do it. Like sometimes, you work a lot. But yeah, I'm a Fish Burner, so that's like 11 York Street. I'm here. Come check it out. Come talk to me. My LinkedIn. So I post regularly. Almost every day I post about events happening in Sydney.
Okay.
Because one of my favorite things about YEH is like that we don't believe in competition about like the startup communities or startup hubs. We don't see that as competition. We just want to actually bring them all together.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it should be. So, my question now, you said you work 7 days a week.
I love it.
How do you maintain your mental health and work-life balance doing
actually, that goes back to at the beginning of the podcast. I mentioned like the whole free will.
Right.
I'm honestly just following what my body wants to naturally do.
Right.
And maybe I'm different, but like I really enjoy working, and I don't see us working, I see us building something. Mm-hmm. I'm sure if it was a job that like I was just renting my time, maybe that would be more like I would get more burned out. But I can, when I feel like I'm building something that's gonna bring value down the track and for more people. And YEH, honestly, by the way, I don't get paid. I don't get any compensation from YEH. It just has unlocked a way for me to give and help people.
Give back. And
Exactly.
that does help your mental health
Yeah.
a lot. Like giving back and helping people is like the best thing you can do.
Absolutely. And you don't need motivation for those things.
Yeah.
When you're really doing what you're called to do, where you around people that like you can help. I don't believe in like that you need motivation. Like you need to really question what you're doing if you are constantly having to, work on that motivation. I no longer think or use that word on my daily vocabulary. Where it's funny, where I used to feel burnt out is when I would force myself to go on a holiday And I was in Fiji actually once, and I was like, for surfers, people who surf, that's the best thing you could do.
Right.
But then I was like I'm like in the middle of 2 palm trees, and I was like, man, like there I got burnt out. So
Really?
yeah,
Interesting.
I was like, I need to get out of here. Yeah.
These damn beautiful beaches.
yeah, exactly. It's
But
like,
but
screw
again, like,
this.
everyone's different. So I guess your passion and everything maintains what you're doing.
Exactly. I feel like if you truly find what like, this is his favorite. One of my favorite quotes is like it says that like the purpose in life is to find the people who needs us the most.
I like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you do, I mean, I tried it and it worked. Maybe you go and try it, but like work hard to find the people that need you the most. And when you're there, it's just like you have infinite energy because like the universe is getting through you.
I agree. But there are things you can put in place because a lot of startup founders do, and corporate people, they do burn out. But
yeah,
I also the stress sometimes if things aren't going well can be so everyone's different. So just to finish off, Leo, what's a question that's no one has ever asked you but you wish they would have?
Oh God. A question that no one has ever asked me, but I wish that they did.
Yeah. Something maybe that you'd like them to know about you, or any question could be.
Maybe I have been asked, but maybe not enough or not recently. It's like why I do it. And it's genuinely because of like it's not really for the money. Like I know like that maybe comes later, but I genuinely, I just want to, going back to that like whole free will and then like finding the people that need you the most. I think I'm like not quite there, but I'm getting a lot closer. And yeah, like if you were to ask me, hey, why you do all that, like the 7 days and whatever, I'm not crying about it, but I'm like it is sometimes super hard, and it is all about like, well, I'm just trying to elevate the human consciousness around me because that's more life. Okay. That's probably the question, like it's why I do it. And
okay,
but yeah, you got me there. Actually, I don't know if that was a good question.
That's all right. Yeah, so well, look, really appreciate your time today. You've had an amazing journey. You have a lot of knowledge, which is great, and that if that can, I'm sure, will help a lot of early stage founders that are listening to this, and and get in touch with Leo, and if you're young like me, join the Young Entrepreneurs Club, and maybe you'll be off to Silicon Valley, and who knows. Thanks so much, Leo. It was a pleasure interviewing you.
No, thank you so much, and like I truly hope that something out of this.
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the Startup Fail Wisdom podcast so you never miss an episode. Up next week, we'll be sitting down with Michael Shephers to uncover essential lessons on branding, cybersecurity, and overcoming crises in the startup world. Trust me, you won't want to miss this one. Hit that subscribe button now and stay ahead in your startup journey.